Hey everybody, this is Kennedy Hawk from the Marvel Champions Monthly Team, and I wanted to talk about a topic that I've talked about with a lot of people in the comments on my videos, and on Discord, and on Facebook, and that's the true cost, or I'm going to call it sometimes effective cost of a card, versus its printed cost, or just its cost. And I'm very guilty of this on the podcast, in videos, and in conversations. I use the word cost very versatilely, we'll say. But that's not the way I should be using it. So what I'm going to try in future videos is to distinguish whether I'm talking about the true or effective cost of a card, or its printed cost, or its actual, like, technical cost, we'll say. So what do I mean by true cost versus printed cost? Let's just use an example that I'm going to pick out of the air. So I'm going to talk about the card Uppercut. Uppercut costs 3, deal 5 damage to an enemy. Simple card from the core set. Very few people use it because it's not very efficient, but it's good for this example. So you'd think with Uppercut, well, that's cost is 3, right? Its printed cost is 3. You spend 3 resources, you get to do the ability of Uppercut. But by spending that Uppercut from your hand, or by playing that event, you're actually throwing away a resource, right? Because you're throwing away the physical resource that Uppercut could generate. So the true cost, or the effective cost of Uppercut, is actually 4. So let's go through some examples and talk about this concept of true cost versus printed cost. So it's pretty simple. I mean, if we're thinking about what is the cost of a card, or the printed cost of a card, right? It's the number at the top left. Bingo bango, let's look at Get Ready. Get Ready costs 0, Ready an ally, it is a 0 cost event. But what is the effective or true cost of Get Ready? Right? By using Get Ready from your hand, you're technically eliminating one resource you could spend from your hand. So I would argue that the true cost of Get Ready is 1, not 0. So in all those videos that I'm saying, oh yeah, Get Ready, it's a free event that does this awesome thing, it's actually a 1 cost expenditure from your income for that turn. So it's a 1 cost event, or 1 effective slash true cost. I haven't decided what term I like yet, but I like both right now. So it is truly requiring you to lose a opportunity to spend a resource to do an effect. So let's look through some examples, right? Apparently I put the answer up right away, so I can't quiz you. But what do you think are the printed cost of these cards? So Squirrel Girl, printing cost 2. Honorary Avenger, printing cost 0. Pretty easy. Everybody can handle that. But what is the true cost of a card? So Honorary Avenger, all those times that I've said, oh yeah, it's a free event or a free upgrade, you just throw it on the board for free, thin your deck, best card ever. I do still agree that it's a very good card, but it's not actually a free card, right? You're losing some opportunity from your income for that turn. It's a 1 cost card. Likewise, Squirrel Girl isn't a 2 cost ally. She's a 3 true cost ally, or however you want to phrase it. So that doesn't mean these cards are bad because they cost more, right? Honorary Avenger is still very efficient. If you compare it to First Aid, it's the same efficiency ratio. First Aid costs 1, but its true cost is 2 because you're getting rid of the First Aid, and it heals 2 damage. Honorary Avenger gives you the 1 static buff, and then it doesn't cycle through your deck. So you can decide which one you like better, but they get about the same effect the turn they're played. But there's some cards that are a lot more complicated to figure out what their true cost is. So what is the true cost of Energy Channel? Energy Channel can be very misleading when you're looking through Captain Marvel's kit, right? It's a 0 cost upgrade. You think, oh, 0 cost upgrades, just like on Avenger, this is great. Get it on the board, thins your deck, costs you nothing. But it's a long-term investment, right? This action says spend an energy resource to put an energy counter here, or 3 energy resources, or however you want to spend over multiple turns. But that means that the true cost of Energy Channel, if you want to do maximum damage with it, is actually 6, because it's the 5 energies you have to spend plus the card itself. 6 is a really big cost in this game. Like, that's just throwing away an entire turn. Now, the advantage of Energy Channel is you can spread that over multiple turns, but that means the cost of Energy Channel, while the printed cost slash cost is 0, the true cost slash effective cost is actually a little bit more. So let's look at some different true cost values. We could put 1 energy counter on here and get 2 damage. We could put 2 energy counters on, spending a true cost of 3 because of the upgrade itself for 4 damage, and so on and so on. I capped it off at 10 because that's the max amount of damage you can do with this card in one instance. So if you spent 6 resources on this card, you get 10 damage for a damage to resource ratio of 1.6. Whereas if you only put 1 counter in, you get a 1.0 damage to resource ratio, which is really, really low. It's like on the the bottom end of the scale of dealing damage. So it can be very misleading when looking at printed costs of cards versus true costs. So let's look at another tricky scenario. This one is Nova, right? So Nova cost 5, or true cost of 5 to get him out of the field. And if you just used his stats, that would deal 6 damage. Spending 5 for 6 damage is worse than Uppercut. So there must be something here going on that makes this ratio a little bit better, right? So let's look at the efficiency ratio of Nova. If you spend 5 on him, you're just going to get that 6 damage. But you're able to spend an energy resource to deal 2 damage to an incoming enemy. So by spending more and more and more and more resources, you can do more and more and more damage, right? With Uppercut, you're spending 4 to deal 5 damage. So 5 over 4 is your damage resource ratio. And with Nova, you have this very variable amount. The more energy you pour into him, the higher that ratio is going to be. It's never going to get higher than 2, right? Because at the end, you're spending a lightning bolt to deal 2 damage. At some point, it'll sort of, like reach a limit where it doesn't get better than 2. But it's still a very effective source of damage, but you have to pour a lot of resources to get that effectiveness up. So the true cost of Nova to get the best out of his ability is very variable. And it can be even more complicated, right? Sometimes true costs can be cheaper. So let's look at Ironheart and Nick Fury, right? I would pay a true cost of 3 to play Ironheart as an ally if she didn't have an ability. But since she draws me a card back, her true cost is actually equal to her printed cost of 2. And that's what's really cool about Nick Fury. Nick Fury draws you 3 cards. So while his true cost without his ability drawing you cards is 5, once you draw those 3 cards that are probably going to generate 3 resources, your true cost is back down to 2. So these allies have the same true cost with completely different stats and very different effects. So that's kind of a neat way to look at cost. If something generates a resource, it can also reduce the true cost just within that turn. Now, things like resource generators like Super Soldier Serum, right? Once you've used that Super Soldier Serum 3 times, it's completely paid for itself. But I like to evaluate true/effective cost and how much it gets you that turn. So if I spend 3 to play Super Soldier Serum, I can then exhaust that to play something else. So I would say the true effective cost of Super Soldier Serum is 2, equal to its printed cost, because it then generates 1 resource. So what is the true cost of a card? It really depends on how you want to play the game and how you want to deck build and how you want to phrase things. But for me in my videos, what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try really, really hard. When I say the cost of something, that means the printed cost on the card. When I say the true cost of something, I'm taking into account a bunch of other factors, like how many resources does this card provide? If we ever get a card that provides 2 resources that's an upgrade, by playing that upgrade or event, I'm not generating those resources. That could be a loss, right? I'm going to count what is the cost of playing the resources spent. So things like that. I'm going to talk about, does a card have additional investments? So this is where, like I said, I like to evaluate how much it costs you in that turn. But when I'm evaluating the effect that stays on a board for multiple turns, I also like to think about its investment. So things like Energy Channel and Nova, I'm going to talk about, the true cost of that card. And finally, does that card provide additional income or card draw or other abilities? You can get the true cost of cards into even negative values if you go crazy with Spider-Woman's ally. So there's lots of different ways you can evaluate the cost of a card. The most important thing, though, is the card fun to play? Then play it. It doesn't matter what the cost is. This is a co-op game, so we need to not get too tied up in the numbers, and I struggle with that sometimes, so I apologize if that happens often. But ultimately, I just like to play cards that are super fun. And for me, I will hopefully not say it in my analysis, but that can really reduce the cost in my mind of playing a fun card. So, I hope you enjoyed this little video/adventure talking about printed cost versus true cost. I'm going to try to be better on the podcast and on my YouTube videos, but whenever you see me do it wrong, be sure to call me out so that I can slowly increase my ability to phrase these things correctly. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's other topics you want me to cover in little tutorials like this. Thanks for tuning in.